Hello friends, this video is a compilation of a bunch of spring DIYs I've done in the past. Maybe you've seen them and maybe you haven't. Let me know in the comments below if you had seen them previously or if this is your first time seeing them. Remember that sometimes they've been in collaborations and sometimes they were in playlists, so maybe I'll say first DIY several times. Just ignore that and enjoy the video. Let's get crafting. Today is Try It Tuesday. So my first DIY, I saw Heidi Sonbul make this adorable bird cage, and I love bird cages, so I decided to try it. So I picked up these two planters at Dollar Tree and removed the chains off of them. They're very easy to remove. They just have those little hooks, and so I removed both of them. Now one of them we're going to leave intact, and the other one we are going to take some wire cutters. I just used my needle nose pliers, the wire cutters. I had to kind of twist it back and forth, and it was a little bit difficult, but I stayed with it. You know, I don't have a lot of strength in my hands anymore, but I stayed with it. Now I'm reversing these because I didn't pay attention on the video that she made, and I turned them the wrong way. So they need to go out. The little she called them J's. She made little J's. I thought that was cute. She made little J's with them, and they need to go out so that you can, then you go and then you just smash that little J shut on top of the wire that you hooked it over. I hope that makes sense. Here you go. I'll show you how to do it. Just squeeze it down on top of that wire. And then the lid to a mason jar without the ring, and I'm just going to use a little E6000 on the places where it's going to make contact. Flip it over, add some more E6000 for extra security. We don't want this going anywhere. And then I am going to add a little hot glue just for extra security. Not on top of the E6000, in between. And now I have this lid off of an orange juice container and this little knob that came off of who knows what. I've had it in my stash. So I cleaned it up good, and then I'm going to glue those pieces together and take it outside and spray paint it with black matte by Rust-Oleum. Now this step, I had a little bit of painter's remorse, if you will. I think what I can do to salvage it and not make it look like the bird pooped all over the cage is add a little bit of brown in to make it look rusted. I think I'm going to go back and do that. But I wish I would have left it black, but it was just a little flat to me. It looks cute in the end though when it's styled. Okay, now I'm going to do this plate. I've seen Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Designs, my sweet friend, do this many times on a glass plate. And I just ripped the fabric because I wanted those ripped edges to show. So I'm kind of deciding and thinking, you know, that's what I do when I tap my fingers like that. So I'm putting a really thick coat of Mod Podge, which I should have just done each, you know, piece of fabric as I was doing it, but regardless, it worked. So I'm going to smooth it out with my little squeegee so that all of that Mod Podge gets in the fibers of the fabric, because you want this to stick really good. Then I'm going to put a good healthy coat of Mod Podge on top of that fabric, making sure that I get it all in all the fibers, so it's going to stick really good and it's going to feel like it's finished out. It's not going to really feel like fabric when you're done. It's going to have a nice, not really slick surface, but it's going to have a, you know, a finished out surface. So here's the other pieces of fabric that I ripped, and I got this fabric at Dollar Tree. I thought it was beautiful spring fabric, and you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just giving it good. If you want to try to cut it to fit, knock your lights out, but I don't cut that accurately. So this is how I chose to do it. Now I'm putting that Mod Podge all the way out to the edges, and then I'm taking a vase that had a large mouth on it, and I'm sitting this plate on it so that I can get that fabric all the way down around the edges. Now once it's completely dry, I left it overnight. I'm putting it on my cutting mat, and I'm using a rotary cutter because that's what I have and that's what I like to use. You absolutely can use an X-Acto knife or some scissors. And this is what it turned out to look like. I absolutely love it. Now I'm going to make a little messy bow. I'm just taking some of that fabric. I'm just using that rotary cutter because it was laying there. You could use some scissors just to make some little snips and rip the fabric to make some little strips of fabric. I'm doing that with all the colors that I used in the plate. Not using this on the plate or the birdhouse, using it on another project, but it just was in this clip, and when I was editing, I just left it in this clip. So stay tuned to see what we do with this little bow. Now it had some stray pieces. I don't necessarily care that all the pieces are the same length, but I just cleaned it up. So here's the finished bird cage and the finished plate. Now the next one was Crafts by Caitlin. She made this cute little planter, and I thought it was adorable, so I wanted to do my spin on it. So I had this planter that I had picked up back in the fall at Dollar Tree. It was in my stash, so I'm painting it with 2 coats of white chalk paint. Then I have this beautiful paper. I'm going to call it paper. It's thicker than tissue paper. It's sort of plastic. It's not plastic. It has a coating on it that makes it feel like wax paper almost, but it's soft and pliable. My cousin's wife is an artist, and she gave up her colored pencils, and she gave me a bunch of those, and then she started doing multimedia, and then she gave up that, and she gave me tons, y'all, tons of stuff. I'm doing her hair for free the rest of her life because we bartered for these. She didn't intend to do a barter, but I did. Okay, so it wouldn't go around. You could see I was showing you that it wouldn't go around without having a pucker in it, so I just cut it. And I'm using some Mod Podge like this because it is the paper's already kind of a wrinkly look. This is totally my vibe, guys. I love this. You're not even going to see that I had to piece this together in the end. You're not even going to notice it. I'm going to cut that at an angle so that the butterfly matches up. I'm just going to hold it with my hand in place, because I'm kind of clumsy. And then I'm just going to press it down in there, and look. Would you look at that? It's beautiful. Okay, so then I'm just going to keep Mod Podging that down. And I end up doing this all the way around the bucket, the planter. So that was one piece, and then I did another piece on the back side. Now I'm taking some more of that fabric. I'm ripping myself off a piece of ribbon. You could easily do some burlap, or some twine, or a piece of burlap ribbon. Excuse me. But I'm kind of a shabby chic cottage shabby chic cottage, country cottage kind of girl, and so this is more my vibe. I do love twine and burlap, don't get me wrong. So I did Mod Podge on these little hearts. Wasn't really quite sure. I wanted them to dangle, and then when I got that all put together, that wasn't really going to work. So I covered these with some more of that little fabric with using the iron-on method. If you don't know about that, you put the Mod Podge on, let it dry completely, and then you go back with whatever medium you're using, whether it's excuse me, fabric, paper, tissue paper, napkins, and put the heat to it with no steam, and it reactivates that Mod Podge, and you have no wrinkles, and it's smooth, and it's beautiful. And I'm just going, you can see what I'm doing here. Just gluing it all together, and then I have these this pick that I got at Walmart. It's beautiful. I've had it in my stash for a while. I just keep kind of using it, and this is the finished product. Let me know what you think about this. I absolutely love it. It looks really cute under the bird cage. That little blue ceramic bird came from Dollar Tree. And then lastly, but not leastly, this is my favorite. I saw these little tulip blocks on Etsy, and I knew I could recreate them. And so I'm just doing a smaller one. Now, if you've been around a while, you know I love banners and garlands. And so I had that piece of styrofoam from some packing, something that came, probably from Amazon. And I have these skewers, and I put those beads on there, which is not genius. Everybody does it, but I just needed them to not lay on the table. So I put my scissors on there because they're heavy, and it keeps it from falling over. So, we do what we got to do. So got them all painted white, and it was not necessarily all completely painted. I kind of liked that it looked a little bit distressed. So I paint all these little blocks white. Then I decided I needed a hole in them. So I drilled the hole after I painted them. Had to go back and paint them a little bit more. But then I took this off-white that I've mixed up using some other colors that I have. And I thought I was going to just kind of make it look a little dirtied up, but not. I didn't want it dark. You can see I drilled the holes. But that's second step of paint didn't really do anything. So you can see I'm just drawing some tulips, freehanding them. If you can't freehand, you can print them out on your printer and do that little method that the crafting cousins do all the time that we've done since we were in grade school, where you color on the back of it with your pencil and then trace it on. If you don't know about that, drop me a comment below and I will get you hooked up with that method. It's amazing. It's easy. But I just, so you can see I practiced over there on my paper drawing my tulips. Here I got all 4 of them drawn on with the holes in there, and now I'm going to distress them with a sanding block, which I liked better than trying to put darker paint on there to distress it. So here they are. I'm going to take my little makeup brush from Dollar Tree to get all the little crumbs off, and now I'm taking some twine and was trying to figure out what was my pattern. Now I've got some masking tape on the end of there, twisting it to get them through there. If you don't know that trick, then it's an awesome one. Just gonna do small bead, large bead, and a block until I get to the very end. And I noticed when I was watching the replay, getting ready to do my voiceover, that I boo-booed on the very last one. But guess what? I'm way too far into this to go back and redo it now. And we're just gonna live with it. It's the one where we're gonna put a tassel on the end. So, whoop-de-doo. It gives it character, right? So we're gonna tie a big fat knot, tie a knot a couple times on top of itself on each end so the beads don't fall off. I'm just using my little squeegee to make a tassel. I'm gonna wrap that around there a bunch of times. I didn't count. I just wrapped it till it was as thick as I wanted it. Then I'm gonna take a piece of twine, tie it at the top, tie it tight, tie a good knot. Then I don't know where that little long piece came from. He didn't make it into the top. Then I'm going to pull it off, and then just a little bit from the top we're going to make that little knot. So I'm going to wrap that piece of twine, I keep wanting to say burlap, what's wrong with me today, and tie it in a nice little knot around the top. You know, sometimes if I don't want that to slide out, I'll just take my super glue and put just a drop of super glue in that knot, so it absorbs in there better than hot glue. Now pull that real tight with those scissors and then just give it a little trim. This one didn't need much trim. That worked out great. Now with those 2 strings, I'm just going to tie this between that knot and that bead. So we have a little tassel at one end of our, you can put a tassel on both ends if you want. I didn't want a tassel on both ends. I just wanted one on one end. And this is absolutely my favorite. Let me know which is your favorite. DIYs. This first DIY, I started out with a little chunk of wood from my stash. I'm just going to paint it all over it with some white chalk paint. I did one good hefty coat, front, sides, back, all the way around. This piece is about 4x4. Got it all good. Good to go. Now I'm going to take some of the dark wax by DIY, and I'm taking a chippy brush and just doing sort of a dry brush technique, and I'm going to let that dry, sort of dry as much as it dries before I wipe it down. And then I wiped it down. I didn't show that on camera, but I wiped it down with a soft cloth. Now I have this little scrap of burlap that was in my stash, and I'm just going to cut it to fit right inside this block of wood. And then I like to fray the edges a little bit. And so I'm measuring it out to see how big I want it. And, you know, I don't measure and then measure my fabric or burlap. I just do it kind of willy-nilly, and I just cut it, and then, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out. I mess it up and I have to start over. But this one worked out great. Now, I'm going to take this acrylic paint, pink, whatever. I wanted to do pink, and I'm going to make a tulip. I'm just kind of freehanding it on here because it's an easy flower to freehand. I'm just going to make a little green stem and voila, we have a tulip. How easy. Okay, I'm just going to hot glue this down. I'm just going to do it on the top first till I get it placed, and then I'm going to put a couple little dots on the bottom, and it's going to stay nicely. Okay, then I picked up these sticker button puffy stickers from Dollar Tree. I'm using the Truffle by Waverly chalk paint. Just any kind of brown will work. And I'm just putting some paint over them. I'll let it dry completely, and then I'm going to take this gold, it's kind of like Rub and Buff, or it's one of those antiquing, gilding polish things. And I'm let that dry completely, and then I'm going to stick these on here to make them look like tacks. I didn't have any thumbtacks. I couldn't find them. I have some somewhere. I just cannot find them. So I'm just going to use these, and it worked fine. They look great. I've done this technique before, and so I knew that it would work. So I'm going to put those in the corner to make it look like that is what's holding the burlap down. Now, I'm taking these 2 thin rounds that I got on Amazon. You can get them at Dollar Tree as well. They come out to be about the same price, and I'm gluing 2 of them together to make it a little more substantial. And I just glued it together, held it with those little clips from Dollar Tree, and let it sit about 8 hours, and then I took it off. Now I'm using some watered down antique wax by Waverly, and just going to put a good heavy coat. It absorbed in there pretty good, so I used quite a bit, and then I just took my soft little t-shirt rag and wiped it off and basically dried it because it was pretty wet. And then once I got it good and dry, I let it dry completely, and then I made this iron-on decal with HTV heat transfer vinyl on my Cricut, and so this little, I thought it was really cute, and I'm going to iron it on because regular vinyl will not stick once you've used wax. So the iron-on works really good when you do this. And I love this decal. I love everything about it. I love the little vine. I love the flowers. I love the font. I got this on in Design Space in the images, and I think it is adorable. I put a little hanger on the back. I glued it down. I use a little bit of that drop cloth that I bought ages ago, and I just keep using it. It's the gift that keeps giving. You could use a little piece of ribbon, a little piece of scrap fabric, anything. I feel like it just helps secure it a little bit better and keeps that ribbon from that's not ribbon, that's twine from coming loose. Now I made a bow out of this ribbon from Dollar Tree, and they have this ribbon there all the time. I see it there all the time, and I thought the little white polka dots really looked cute with the white design on here, and so cute. Now I have these florals that I got at Walmart. You can see it over on the right. I'm about to start picking and poking and cutting, and I'm not going to show you that I glued them in. I'm showing you how I just sort of picked little pieces off and decided how I liked it, and then once I got it on there how I liked it, then I pulled them out and glued them in. And this is how it turned out. I hope you're enjoying watching these DIYs as much as I enjoyed making them. If this is your first time watching my channel, welcome. My name is Kendra. You're watching Late Night Creations. Feel free to go ahead and subscribe, drop a comment below, do all the things that help my channel while you're here. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you. Thank you for your continued support. And let's get back to crafting. Now, I had these blocks off of the tops of the spindles, and I cut them up in little blocks. Now, if you don't have something like that, you could definitely take one of these from Dollar Tree, one of those signs, and measure them out all the same width and cut them up. And you could make this out of something like that, or you could use 1x2s. I just had these, and so it was free to me because it was just trash in my shop, basically. It's the parts of the spindles that I cut off so that I can use the spindles. And so these were just those little square ends that were just laying around. And then I had this little piece, was also scrap. It's 1x2, and it was scrap in my shop. You could also use a little piece from Dollar Tree. Then I made these. You could use stickers, definitely use stickers for this, or stencils. I made these on my Cricut, and I'm just trying to figure out the spacing. And I'm thinking, because I mess this kind of stuff up all the time, so I laid the P where the P was going to go, since these aren't all the same size and height, because I did want spring. You can see the letters that I pulled out up on top. I did want spring to be somewhat, level. So I'm just taking these 3 different colors of, I believe this is the Folk Art matte paint, which resembles, chalk paint. Then I had these in my stash for a while, but I think they have them again at Dollar Tree. It's a little tray of wooden embellishments. And so I just am using a makeup sponge to dab, dab, dab. And now I'm going to take this off, the reveal. Oh, it's so fun. And yes, those letters look great. And I love these colors for spring. I like bright colors, but for spring, I don't know. I just love these kind of pastel-y colors. Then I'm going to take my sanding block, and I'm going to distress the edges and the letters a little bit. Mostly the edges, not the letters, just to give it a little bit of a rustic, worn look. Like maybe it's been outside a little bit. You can see that I'm getting the edges a little bit more. Same with the base. This is going to be the base that we sit those little blocks on. Now here I'm using my little tabletop, desktop vacuum. I'm going to have that linked in the description box below. You can get that on Amazon if you want one. It is amazing. It's rechargeable, no batteries. With a USB, it's great. Now I'm using the DIY clear wax to seal these all up. So, if it gets dusty, you can dust it, or it just gives it a nice, beautiful finish. So I'm just going to use that little piece of a old t-shirt, and then I'm going to use a little wood glue, a little hot glue. I'm going to glue these together, and I'm going to sit it down so that I make sure that all the bottoms are flat so that it sits down properly. Get all of these all glued together. I think this turned out so cute. Might be my favorite piece in this video. You can see I did not paint the bottoms of these because they're going to be sitting on the base and nobody's going to see it. Not wasting my time painting that. Then I'm going to center it on the base. Mash it down. And then I'm going to glue those 2 little embellishments, one on each end. I probably should have used some Aleene's tacky glue, but I used hot glue. And there it is, all finished. Okay, so I cut these letters out on my Cricut on some cardstock, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to do a stencil or if I wanted to do reverse stencil. So I'm trying to decide. I'm positioning, so I decided I want to stencil the letters on. This wood plank came from the trash. It was on the side of the road. My sweet, sweet sister-in-law saw it in her neighborhood and called me and said, "There's these wood planks on the side of the road." Someone in her neighborhood Facebook group said, I have this on the side of the road if anybody wants it. And she called me, "Do you want it?" "Of course I want it." So she went and picked it up. Well, my niece went and picked it up for me, and they brought it to me, and there were quite a few pieces of it. And so it's really nice little planks of wood, like weathered looking wood. And they were all cut to really nice lengths already. So I'm just using this. Now I'm holding this paper down really tight with my fingers. And once it gets wet from the paint, it almost kind of sticks to the wood a little bit. So I'm just being really careful. And I'm using this sponge, and I'm just pouncing up and down, up and down. It's a makeup sponge. Works really great. Bargain Bethany, I watched her do that years ago, and I've used this technique ever since. It's great. Now you can see that the edges are not real crisp. I don't really care that they're not real crisp, but I'm showing you right there that if you want them really crisp, you could use a paint marker to go ahead and make them crisp. But because I'm going to use a sanding block, a pretty fine grit sanding block to sand it down a little bit, those edges are not, it's not really going to matter. And then I'm going to wipe all that sand grit off. Now I have this little pitberry garland that I think is absolutely beautiful for spring, and I'm going to wrap it around the bottom and the top of this little sign just to give it that extra little something something. And I'm going to wrap the two ends together like a twisty tie. I thought that would probably be enough, but I didn't think it was. So I went ahead and put some hot glue right in the center underneath. You can see right there, I put some hot glue in. And then I made this little loop for a hanger. I'm going to put some hot glue down. I'm going to mash that twine into that hot glue, and then I'm going to take my stapler. I'm going to staple below the knot. I'm going to staple above the knot. I don't want that hanger going anywhere. Do make sure that your staples are not thicker than your wood. And here is the finished product. I have had these in my stash because I bought them at Christmas one year on the website, and I had a whole case of them. And these are some of those little wood embellishments that come in that little tray. Now I'm going to cover the glittery side with this craft paper, or it's postal paper, you know, that you wrap your packages to mail them. And I'm just going to trim it off with my X-Acto knife. You can see what I'm doing here. And there I go with that vacuum. I use it all the time, guys. Okay, then I'm taking Aged Gray by Rust-Oleum. It's a chalk paint. And I'm going to give this 2 coats, especially the edges. The front, maybe 1 coat, 1.5 coats. 1 coat plus wherever it needs a little extra. And then the sides got 2 coats because that black was a little more difficult. Then I'm going to dry brush a little bit of white on there just to give it a little dimension. Now I'm deciding what to do for the top where the lid would be. Normally I use a piece of cookie sheet, disposable cookie sheet, but I'm going to put some fabric on there. And you saw my choices that I was trying to choose from, but I just love this white shabby chic looking fabric. You know, this is going to look like the jars that have the fabric on the lid. And so I just cut a little piece, and then I'm going to put some twine around it so that will look kind of like the lid that holds the fabric down when you put fabric on your mason jars. Don't forget to subscribe. It's free, and if you hit the bell, YouTube will notify you every time I upload a new video, and then you won't miss anything. Okay, so I'm just doing this really tight on there. I'm going to glue it down, and then I'm going to trim off until it looks like it's a little long on the sides. So I'm just going to trim it and round it up until it's the look that I want, until it looks like I want it. Now I'm going to use these sponges again, and I'm going to paint all these little wooden embellishments the color I want. I'm going to hold them with a little skewer so that I don't mind getting paint all over my fingers, but it was just easier to do it. Then with a little dauber, I'm going to put a little white center in the yellow ones. Now I've placed them all on there how I think I want them. I made a little bow with some twine and that little baker's twine in green and white that I got at Dollar Tree. And then I wised up, and I'm using the Aleene's tacky glue. You could use wood glue, any kind of glue, with a toothpick, and that may be a skewer. And this stuff dries really fast, so I put some down, and then I decided I was going to move it, and there was no moving it. It dried, probably in a minute. And then I'm trying to decide, where do I want to put this last little butterfly? On top, on the side, where would you have put it? Would you have put it on top of the flowers or down there where I put it? Okay. Let's get started on DIY number 1. This is one of those little imitation cutting boards from Dollar Tree. And I just took that glittery paper part off. That's on the back side of this. This is actually the back side of the sign, but we're gonna paint it with this Sage by Folk Art. I love this color. I think it's beautiful. It's a great spring color, and I'm gonna give it one good solid coat on the sides and the front. Now it's all completely dry, and I have these letters that I cut out in a previous video that I used as a stencil, and I saved the letters because we're going to do a reverse stencil. Now I'm using this double-sided tape that I get at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to try to take some of the sticky off so that it doesn't stick too much to my paint and peel the paint off. And this technique worked really well. I used a little piece of cloth, fabric, and tried to get some of that sticky off. So I'm just going to put a few little pieces of this double stick tape down just to hold my letters down in place and get a lot of that sticky off using my fingers and some of this fabric. Just dabbing it on there and dabbing it on there until it's still sticky, but not so sticky that it's going to peel the paint off when I take the letters off. Now I've got all 4 letters stuck down. I didn't show you sticking all 4 of them down, but I've got all 4 of them stuck down. And now I'm going to do a really heavy dry brush. So it's not really a dry brush. It's a medium brush. It's a semi-wet brush. And I'm going across here and I'm holding these letters. Now I'm doing the tulip, but I'm holding it down really tightly as I go over it. But once this paper gets wet, it sticks to the surface a little bit. So I'm still going in a side-to-side motion as much as possible so that it doesn't really get pushed up underneath the letter. So that, you know, just like when you're doing stenciling, you want to pounce, but we can't really pounce because I want to have these lines. So I'm just being very careful to try not to push the paint up underneath the letters. You'll see when we do the reveal that some of it is, but it makes it look a little rustic. So see, that looks great. And you'll see that a little bit of it did get under there. It's not super crisp, but this is the look that I'm going for. And I'm gonna sand it a little bit with a sanding block. This is 180 grit sanding block. I get these on Amazon. I think I will have that in the description box below if you want to get some of those off Amazon. You also can get them at Dollar Tree, but I'm pretty sure they only have 1 grit at Dollar Tree, and it's a pretty rough grit. And so I'm just going to do the edges a little bit and run it across the letters. And then I'm going to use this ribbon that I got at Sam's Club a couple of years ago. I got it in the spring. And I'm going to do the awareness ribbon bow. It's super easy to do. I'm just kind of measuring out how much ribbon I'm going to need, how big I want it. I'm just going to do this simple little bow. Tie it all together with some twine in the middle. Because when I get done, that twine in the middle on the front looks cute. Not sure why I didn't cut that other little twine tail off right then, but you know, sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to how I do things. Oop, there we go. Got it. I'm just going to glue that little bow right to the center. We're going to keep this DIY simple because it just kind of speaks for itself. Let's make some adorable Easter decor with some stuff out of my stash. I had these wooden bunny cutouts that I got at Dollar Tree. They come in a multi-pack. You can usually get these every year. I'm going to do some white chalk paint on the back side. Now on the unpainted side, I'm going to put Mod Podge. I'm going to let it dry completely, and then I'm going to use this fabric I had in my stash, and I'm going to iron it on. Now, hindsight, I wished I would have traced around it and cut them out a little bit because this is not as easy to cut around as paper is. But I did this for all of these bunnies. Okay, then I'm going to take these teeny tiny little scissors, and I'm not even sure where I got these scissors or what they're supposed to be used for, but they worked really good for this. And I'm just going to take my time and snip all the fabric around it. Now, it was worth it because they turned out really cute. But like I said, hindsight, I would have tried to just trace around it and cut them. It would have been a little bit easier. Normally with paper, I just do it this way and it's a lot easier, but this fabric, it just was a little, see how I'm just having to cut all those little frayed edges, and it doesn't work to sand it because you can't really sand fabric. But I just took my time and got it done. Now I'm going to give the fabric side a good coat of Mod Podge to seal that fabric in. Now, I got these little carrots in a multi-pack at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take those little tops off because I just didn't like the way they looked. And I'm going to poke a hole in the ends with those little tiny scissors and make the hole a little bit bigger. And I had this greenery in my stash, had it for a long time, and I just cut some of the little sprigs off and snipped them off, and then I just bunched them all up, put a little hot glue down in there, and stuck a few pieces in there, and I thought this kind of looks a little bit like parsley, but I thought it looked a little bit cuter than the pieces that came with it. Now I'm just going to stick that carrot in there. I'm going to place it where I think it looks cute. Now I did those bunnies facing each other so that I can put that carrot in between them. And I'm going to put glue on the other side of the carrot, and then I'm just going to put it where they're facing each other. This way it stands up. And then you can see it stands up and it looks like he's holding a carrot. I think that one turned out really cute. You have to let me know what you think about this one in the comments below. Now I'm going to take this little piece of fabric and just rip it. We're going to make a little bow. Now the other little bunnies I covered with all the different, colors of fabric. This one I'm just going to rip this little striped fabric. It's going to match that little plate that we did. And then I'm just going to take some twine. We're going to make a little finger bow. And I do have a slowed down version of finger bow and tassels. And I will try to remember to link that in the description box below for you so that if you're interested, you can go check that out. And then we're going to just take all these little strips and we're going to fold them up and make a little bow. Put them together, make a messy bow. I don't really know if I know what I'm going to do with them. Just experimenting to see what I think is going to look good. I think first I thought I was going to make a messy bow. Then I thought I'm just going to fold them over. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to do that. Well, then I finally decide I'm just going to do what you see me doing here. I'm just going to kind of make a little rag bow, messy bow. And just tie a little piece of twine in the middle, and I just let the little ends of the twine hang out because personally I think that looks kind of cute. I'm going to take my hot glue and I'm going to glue that little bow right in the middle of that little bunny. He's so cute. She's so cute. He's so cute. We don't care if it's a boy or a girl. It's cute. Lots of fluffing over here in this craft space. And we're going to make them face each other. Because originally I was going to make a bunch of those with the carrots, but I ended up not. I thought this was really cute on a napkin at your place setting. And then now I have these that I did with the fabric. I did some of them horizontally and some of them vertically. And I think that looks cute. And then I'm just going to glue the carrots on a little bit crooked. You can do them straight if you want. You could do them however you want. Or you don't even have to do this DIY if you don't want. But I just thought these would be cute to decorate my table with for Easter. So let me know if you decorate your table for Easter or not. We are going to start out today with some spindles that I took out to the shop and I cut them to look like these little pedestals. I'm going to use some Sawmill Gravy by Dixie Belle, and I'm just going to give them a good coat, one coat. I'm going to make 3 of these in this video, and all 3 I did this same thing with. One of them did not get recorded, so I'm just telling you right now, I did it with all 3 of them. Now, I thought this would be a great idea to take some white wax and just kind of smear it on this terracotta pot. But guess what? It's very porous and it absorbed that wax in kind of a weird way. So I should have just stopped here and just stopped. I don't know what else to say. Oh, but no. I had to just keep trying and just keep trying. And I kept adding different layers of paint, thinking I was going to make it look old and like it'd been, you know, used and reused, but I just made a mess. And then I decided I was going to take some of Anita's acrylic paint in terracotta and paint it and start over. And I ended up breaking the pot. So I started over and just whitewashed one with some white paint. You'll see that later. So I'm taking some dark wax by DIY Wax. I get these waxes from Bree, from Upcycle by Bree, and she has a website, upcycledbybree.com. It's linked in my description box in every video, and I love it. I use the dark wax, the clear wax, and the white wax a lot. I'm using the clear wax now to just kind of blend this in. I love this combination of sawmill gravy and the dark wax. And I'm going to put that little pot on top of that little pedestal. Now, I got these little styrofoam eggs on clearance last year at Dollar General, and I'm just going to give them a little coat of some paint. They were a little too bright for me. Now I'm going to glue these 2 little pieces together. I didn't show you that I did this terracotta paint wasn't as porous. This terracotta pot wasn't as porous, so I was able just to use the white wax on it. It did not come from Dollar Tree. It was just in my stash from probably someone gave it to me, and so it did take the white wax very nicely, and so that's what I did to this little pot. Now I'm just taking some Spanish moss from Dollar Tree, and I'm just making a little nest, and I'm going to put these little eggs in there, and I do hot glue them into the nest, but I did not hot glue the nest into the pot, just in case I wanted to use the pot further down the road for a different DIY. Okay, now I decided those little pots would not stand up on their own. So I had these little round tags. They came in a pack. Somewhere I'd gotten them. You could use any kind of little round something. I glued 2 of them together to make it a little thicker. And I filled the holes with some wood putty. I sanded it down. And now I'm going to paint them with that sawmill gravy. And I'm going to do the same thing with everything that I use as the base in this video. And then once it's completely dry, I get back out my dark DIY wax and just give it a little dry brush around there. You know, make it match. Look a little old and worn. A little bit aged. And then I take a cloth and I wipe it off. And then I dump the bird nest out. But I use a little wood glue. I get the super glue wood glue from Dollar Tree. It works fantastic. And I'm just going to glue that right down in the middle of that little wood disc. You saw me put a little hot glue in there for a quick hold. And then the wood glue is going to be for a permanent hold. And this is how that little pot on the pedestal turned out. I think it turned out adorable. Now here are all those spindles. Look, this is the back of my husband's truck. This is in the shop. And this is me cutting them off. Can you believe I got all those spindles for free? Guys, if you would just check your Facebook Marketplace, look on the side of roads, construction sites, be sure to ask, because all communities are not cool with you taking stuff off the curb or dumpster diving. However, the area that I live in, it's cool. So keep your eyes out for scrap wood. You can make free, beautiful home decor. So let's get back to the video. Okay, our next DIY. we are going to use that other little pedestal that we made from a spindle. I have this little birdhouse I got on clearance at Joann's, had it in my stash, and then this beautiful little pink color from Dixie Belle. I'm not sure what the name of it is, but it's one of their pinks. They have several pinks, but this is the one that I chose, and I'm not disappointed. And then there's that sawmill gravy I'm going to put on the roof, and I always say that weird, roof, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to take that hanger off because it got in my way, number one, and then when I go to paint that little knob on top, it really was going to be in the way. So here we go, just painting the roof, and then we're going to paint that little knob on top white. This is just white chalk paint. And now I'm going to take that white chalk paint, and it's not really dry brush, but kind of is dry brush. I'm just not really painting a heavy coat on that pink, and then I'm really kind of just dry brushing that with what was left in my brush on the top. And now I'm going to take that dark wax, almost just what was left on my spatula from earlier, and going to just put a little bit on there and then just blend it in with my little soft scrap of a t-shirt. Now same with this little pedestal. I'm just kind of putting some of that wax on there, wiping it off. I think that I did some white dry brushing on there as well, and now I'm just going to sand it to distress it a little bit and distress this little house, this little burn house. And I used a really coarse grit. The texture of this birdhouse, the kind of wood it was almost like driftwood, and so it was a little hard to distress, but I really liked how this got in there and made almost like little grooves in it. So I really liked the way that it turned out. Now I'm going to put a hanger back up on top, only because there was already that hole in there, and I just felt like it needed that piece of twine back in there. So here I go, struggling to figure out what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. So I just tie that knot back in there. You can see from the last little DIY to this DIY, I got the Band-Aid off my finger because I had a casualty at work and snipped my finger while I was cutting hair. So I don't know if this was the day before, or this must have been the day before, because that didn't heal up that quickly. As you know, oftentimes it takes several days to record videos. Okay, now I got this little one finished, and it wasn't level on the bottom, so I just stuck some masking tape on there and to get it level, and I'm just going to do the same thing I did on the other one. Same song, second verse, same as the first, and there is that little baby finished, and I think that is so cute. It's small. It'll be cute on a tier tray. I put it on a book stack. I just think it's beautiful. Now our third and final pedestal planter. This is the one I just whitewashed, and I did the base of it the same way, except the bottom was one of those little wood rounds. I think you can get them at Walmart or Hobby Lobby. I believe I got those in a 3-pack at Hobby Lobby. Now I'm going to take this ribbon from Dollar Tree. It's kind of a cloth ribbon. I absolutely love this ribbon, and I'm going to just put it around there. And you see that I only put the glue at the top because on a round surface it is kind of weird to put ribbon on, and it kind of makes it look like a little skirt on there. I think it looks really cute. Then I'm just going to put a little piece of twine on top of that, put a little twine bow. I'm going to fill this with some greenery and some lavender that I got off Amazon, and I think it is just beautiful. But today we're going to make a garland, and I painted everything with white chalk paint. And then I bought these little stamp-looking, romantic stamp-looking things off Temu. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not. And they were super cheap, and I got a ton of them. And I thought they would be so fun to craft with. Just wait till you see what I did. Just wait. It's hilarious. Anyway, so I'm taking this rose color by, it's the Michaels brand paint, and just gave it a little dry brush on there, or just put some streaks on there. I did a little bit on the beads as well, and then I took my sanding block and just distressed it a little bit, not a ton. I did the beads a little bit too. Now, I take the Aleene's tacky glue and I put it all across the back of this shiny, what I thought was paper, and I put it on there and I start to rub it, and the corner starts coming up. And so I start kind of peeling it. I think I'm going to put some glue behind there. And guess what? It's a sticker. It's a sticker. I am so blonde. But guess what? It works out great. And these stickers are so amazing. And it just stuck right on there. And they're thin. They're almost like maybe like a decoupage paper or a rice paper. And it just stuck right down on there so smoothly. I think it is so pretty. I love it. This is my style, guys. I love it. So then I'm going to take those beads, and I did a large one, a small one, a large one, a small one. And I just did a pattern, and I just put however many on there I wanted to. Just kept going until I got them all done. And then I tied a knot on the end. And, oh, maybe I didn't tie a knot on that end. I thought I did. Oh, yep, I did. Tied a knot on that end, and then I like to just put a little drop of hot glue to help the bead stay right there. A lot of times I'll put super glue in those twine knots so that they will not come undone. Now this one, I for some reason had to do a double knot. So yeah, I just pull that knot I didn't get it all the way down there, so let me undo it and pull it all the way down on top of that other knot so it's a thicker knot. Put my little drop of hot glue on there. You can see what I'm doing. I don't even have to tell you. See, there's that Band-Aid. See that Band-Aid on my finger? Yes, I snipped my finger good when I was cutting somebody's hair that day. And then I'm going to put this tag on this end of that beaded garland. First, I'm going to burn the little hairs off. Be careful if you do that. And then, there's probably a really good, simple way to tie this up, but this is just how I did it. If you have a good way to do it, you just do it. It worked for me. And I like the way it looked in the end. I like the way that looks when it's wrapped around the like a loop through the hole. There I am with my super glue. Just put some of that super glue in that twine so it's not going anywhere. Here I am with that beautiful cotton lace ribbon, and I'm going to put 2 little pieces of that right there. I'm not even trying to make a bow or anything. I'm just, making some fluff. I just like the way it looked. There's not always some rhyme or reason to the way that I craft, just so that you like it in the end, right? Now I'm going to make a tassel out of that ribbon. So I'm just using my little squeegee. You could use a piece of cardboard. You can use your hand, whatever. I'm just going to wrap it around a few times. And I don't know why I was being so meticulous, because in the end I just wad it all up. Now I thought I was going to use this twine, and it was really thick. And so I was going to grab some thinner twine, and then I remembered that I had this beautiful embroidery floss, or embroidery thread. I don't even know if people call it floss anymore. Back in the day when I first started embroidering 45 years ago, we called it embroidery floss, and I could go to the dime store downtown on Main Street. It's called Ben Franklin's. Well, there was Ben Franklin's or Mott's in my little town, and they were the 5 and dimes, and I could get embroidery floss for 5 cents a skein, or whatever, that little thing I just showed you. We called that a skein. And I was taught to embroider when I was young, about 9 or 10 years old, and I loved it. I did embroidery on my jeans. I did it on cup towels. Just anything I could find or tea towels. They were tea towels. Okay, so you can just see what I'm doing. It's pretty self-explanatory. And now I'm just going to fluff that. Oh, I'm going to trim the bottom, cut them open. And then I'm just going to fluff it, unwad it, and wad it, and unwad it until I get it to look like I want it to. And then I'm going to tie it on the other end of our beaded garland. I really, really love how this garland turned out. Let me know what colors you're using this spring to decorate with. I'm really into this pink, this rosy pink this year. I've been using it a lot. And here it is finished. It's very romantic. It's very vintage. I love it. Be sure to leave a comment below. If you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe and hit that bell all, and so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And thank you so much for watching. Out with some scrap wood that I cut pretty much all the same size. There may be a little bit difference in them, but it's okay because it's a rustic piece. I'm taking some chalk paint in white. This is by Rust-Oleum, and I am going to paint the sides, the front, and the back on all of these pieces, and I'm giving it a pretty good coat. This is raw wood, so it absorbs the paint really nicely and covers good. Now I made these decals, these stencils, with stencil vinyl on my Cricut, and he is risen, the tomb is empty is the whole meaning of Easter to me. I love spring decor as well, but for Easter, the fact that he is risen and the tomb is empty. He died on the cross, absolutely, but he is not a dead God. He is alive. So I put a little Mod Podge on there to help seal the edges so that we don't have any bleeding. And I started with some paint that was a little too thin, and it wasn't getting me very good coverage, but it was darker than this truffle by Waverly, but the truffle by Waverly was thicker and I needed better coverage. So I sort of mixed the two of them together to get the color and the thickness of the paint that I wanted. So that's what I did, and I'm using a makeup sponge and just dabbing, dabbing it, being careful not to go over the edge and getting on the white. But you know what? If I get it on the white, I just go back with some white paint and touch it up. I've done that plenty of times, and so it's not a big deal if you do that. Or if you don't like to do touch-up paint, you can put some painter's tape around your stencil and protect it, and then that works great too. So I'm getting it all covered as good as I want to get it covered, and then I'm going to rip it off. I did have a little bleeding because the type of wood that it was, and I think my Mod Podge was a little thin because it had gotten really thick because my Craft Cottage froze a couple of times during some freezes that we had, and I had to water it down. I think I got it too thin, and so I think that's why I had a little bit of bleeding. I'm not real sure why, but I just went back and touched it up with some white paint. Now I'm taking the antique wax on a paper towel, and I'm just dabbing it on the sides and the front of this little tiny cross that I don't even remember. I think I got these at Hobby Lobby in a pack of, a gajillion of them. And so I'm going to use this little tiny cross, and I didn't even fill the hole in that was at the top. This antique wax just, I don't know how it kind of filled it in, or the hole wasn't actually really that great of a hole in the first place. You know how it kind of will have some splinters across the hole, so it didn't even show up. Now I'm going to take a little piece of twine, and I'm just going to wrap it crisscross in an X around the middle of the cross. I think it makes it look a little more rustic. I just like the way this looks. And the fact that it's a little thicker on the back helps me make it a little more 3D when I decide to put it on one of those little blocks in the end you're going to see. Then I take my sanding block and try to distress around the edges, and it didn't work real good for me, so I took it outside and used my hand sander and just distressed it down because I like this distressed look. And then I'm going to take, I didn't show this, I didn't get it on camera, so I'm telling you what I did. I took some clear wax by DIY and waxed them, and then I took the dark wax because the clear wax will keep the dark wax from being so dark. It's easier to move around. And then I just put it on this little piece of an old t-shirt that I cut up, and I just used my finger to put the wax where I wanted it, and then just give it a good rub down. I did that on all 3 of these pieces, keeping the dark mostly around the edges. And then I glued that little cross down to the middle. Right, I just only glued that twine part so it gives it a little 3D effect. And here's how they look on my tiered tray. Now I got this from my sister. She gave me a big bag of things that she had bought and didn't want anymore, and this was in there. And this is from Target, the dollar spot, and it was $3. And although I think it is very cute, very neutral except for that bright orange carrot, I decided I wanted to make it even cuter. And so I got my scrapbook paper out, I took those carrots apart, and then I'm just going to trace around each one of my shapes, 2 of the carrots and 1 of the bunnies, and I'm just tracing around it. This, I just decided to do a rough trace because I'm going to do the iron-on method with my, what is this called? Mod Podge. There you go. Sometimes my words just leave me. That's part of getting old or just too much on your mind. Okay, so I'm deciding whether I want the straps on these carrots to go up and down or sideways. And so I decide I want them to go sideways because you know how carrots kind of have those ridges that go around the carrot? I always think that those lines will make it look more realistic, like carrots really have pink and green stripes on them. But anyway, I just thought that looked cuter. So here's a coat of that Mod Podge. Even though it was thin, it worked really good. So if you're not familiar with that method, I'll explain it when I start to iron on. Now I needed to make the edges of this carrot white instead of orange, and I didn't really care if it was super duper coverage because those stripes in that paper would look good if it was had a little bit of the orange showing through. And then while I had white paint in my paintbrush, I decided to go ahead and give that little house a little bit of a whitewash. Now that that Mod Podge is completely dry, and then I'm going to take that parchment paper and my little heat press, and it reactivates that glue for a creaseless, wrinkle-free Mod Podge, and it turns out beautiful. Then I'm going to take my Aleene's tacky glue, and I'm going to glue. It's a thick glue, so I'm going to glue, and it dries fairly fast. And I'm going to glue my 3 carrots back together, and I'm going to set them aside to dry while I glue some of these little teeny tiny greenery pieces I had on this house around the bunny to make this wreath a little more 3D, make it pop a little bit more. I did kind of hide the bunny a little bit, but I think it looks cute. Then I just made a little bow out of this yarn that I picked up at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to wrap some of that yarn around these carrots and glue the yarn to the carrots so it doesn't slide off. I'm not sure why I'm using this glue instead of hot glue, except that it does tend to lay flatter and not be so, I'm going to say gloppy, if that's a word. Well, you know, I live in Texas, and so we can make up words. We just make up words. I thought this green looked really cute on here. And here's the finished product with the rabbit and the carrots and the little house. And here it is on my tiered tray. Let me know what you think about this little makeover. This little hanging frame at Dollar Tree last year, and I had purchased several of them when I found them, so I've had them in my stash, and I'm just going to paint the edges of the frame in this pink by DIY. I think it's just called Soft Pink. No, this is not DIY. I apologize. This is, what is this paint? This is Dixie Belle. This is Dixie Belle paint, and it is in the color Soft Pink. It's a really pretty pink. I'm going to do the edges and the top of this frame. I did not do the inside because it's a really pretty wood grain finish. And then I'm going to take white chalk paint and just give this little cross, another one of those little tiny crosses. That's the last cross in that stash. I'm going to have to find me some more. And then I'm going to take the DIY white wax on an old stencil brush and just give the edges a little bit of a white glaze. Now I created this image with my Cricut, and it's an iron-on transfer. It's HTV, and I love to do this because it just adheres better to me than the vinyl on wood. And so it's all nice and flat and smooth. Now I'm trying to decide which twine or ribbon that I want to put on here. This is Baker's twine, and I had this thicker one, and I thought it would look better than that little skinny one. So I just made a little knot. I'm going to glue the little knot on top because I want it to look like it comes through there, but that was too thick to get it through those holes, and I didn't really want to create thicker holes with the drill. So this is just what I did. And I'm just checking to make sure that I've got the placement correct, and then just going to make a little hanger. And then I used some scrap fabric. I used the canvas drop cloth because I have tons of it, and just put it on the back of that hanger to adhere it a little bit better so it doesn't come loose. And so you can see how that hanger turned out. Then I had this little rabbit that came off of a Dollar Tree sign from last year, and I'm going to just glue him on there, and to mask those little holes, I guess, I put a little hanger on him, and I'm going to put a bow on top like he's just kind of hanging on there. And then that cross, I'm going to put it on top of the bunny because Jesus is the reason for this season. He's the reason for every season of our life. So, silly rabbit, Easter's for Jesus. This saying has been around for a while, but anyway, this is how my little sign turned out. This little sign came from Dollar Tree as well. This is a fairly new sign to my Dollar Tree, and I absolutely love it. There's so many possibilities to DIY with this. Now I'm just taking my white chalk paint and going over it because I wanted it to just look a little more finished. It just didn't look very finished. Now I got this little transfer on Amazon, and I think that they come out to be about $1 or a little less than $1 a piece when I did the math for how many came in the package. This is by Prima Design, or Prima Redesign, I believe it's called. And so you just rub, and I like to peel as I rub so that I make sure that everything's going to stick and adhere. And how easy is this? Now, this little lamb does have his tongue stuck out, and my cousin was over when I was DIYing, and we were in the craft cottage together, and she said, "Oh, I hope that is not an indication like he's sticking his tongue out." But Jesus is the Lamb of God. He was the perfect lamb, the only way that he could be sacrificed for our sins, because the sacrifices for the remission of sins had to be a perfect sacrifice. The lamb couldn't have spots or blemishes. And so I always love to have the lamb as a representative. Behold the Lamb of God. And so but I didn't want it to be like he was sticking out his tongue. I think he's just, about to go to slaughter, and he's got his tongue stuck out. He's hanging his tongue out. I don't know. But I just love this little lamb, and that's how it represents Easter to me. So let me know what you think about this little DIY. I think it is precious and adorable. I picked up this after Valentine's Day at Aldi for 99 cents. And it's double-sided. So we're getting a 2-for here. So this one was right at $5 for me to create. But it's 2. So technically I can get away with it being, it was like $5.04, I think, when I did the math on it. But I'm going to sand down the front and the back just to kind of sand off. Those letters were not really raised, but there was a little bit of a texture to them. And so I did have to do 2 or 3 coats of this paint so that you couldn't still see that writing through it. But I was really careful. After the first coat, I did end up taping it off because I made a mess. And so I did one side. I did that Sage Green by Folk Art. This is Elephant Gray by Waverly. And so I let them dry completely. And then this one, I decided to go ahead and put a messy coat of white. I just did one coat, and I wasn't really careful. I didn't care if I got complete coverage. This is the look I was going for. And then I love the frame that I had sanded it a little bit, and it just is that light color wood. Now I'm using my old scrap of t-shirt, which you will see me use on my channel almost every DIY, to dust it off and smooth it out. Now I got this on Amazon as well, and it is the Prima Redesign. They end up being 81 cents each, and you can count that as the rabbit and the greener and the stems are the same price, which the stems are smaller than the rabbit. So I don't know if that's even, fair math to say that little one that I'm putting on right now was 81 cents as well as that big rabbit, but that's just how I figured it. So I went back and forth how to put these on here, and too much or too little, but I really wanted this to just be really simple and, very simple Easter decor piece. And it is small enough that it fit on the top of my tiered tray. But if you wanted to put it in a vignette, sometimes I think some simple pieces in a vignette are just beautiful, and we don't necessarily need all of the extras. So I was trying to decide if I wanted the butterfly or the bird on this side, and I think butterflies just scream new life to me. And so that's what spring and Easter is all about, and so that is what I went with. So here are the finished sides of this little decor piece. So okay, part of the He Is Risen playlist, this is DIY number 1. I picked up this little decor piece at Dollar Tree, and as cute as it was, I decided I was going to remake it. So I'm taking my little measuring tape and measuring the inside of this box, and I'm going to mark it off on this wood grain scrapbook paper, and I'm just going to cut it to fit inside that little box. Easy peasy with my handy dandy paper cutter. It cuts nice straight lines much better than I can with a pair of scissors. So I just cut it, fits in there, great. And I'm going to paint the inside, everything that's black on this, I'm going to paint with this DIY Prom Queen paint. It's a beautiful blue, and yes, I just maybe gave it one coat, maybe 2 coats, I can't remember, just until I wanted it as dark as I wanted it, as much coverage. Then I had this pack of little crosses. I forgot I had them. They were in my stash, and they were from Hobby Lobby. Got quite a few in a pack. And I took the Antique Wax by Waverly and gave it a good coat and buffed it off. And then now I'm just going to sand it a little bit to, rough it up a little bit. And then I take my little old piece of t-shirt to smooth it out. Now, I did this with an iron-on decal on paper. I do this all the time, and it works so good. And look, voila. So I just ironed it on. It's the HTV vinyl transfer paper. Vinyl. I can't even talk. And now I'm just going to use a regular old glue stick and put a lot of glue in here so that it sticks good, and then just around the edges so that it gets a nice little fit. Then I'm going to take my squeegee, and I'm going to make sure that it gets all up in the corners, and I'm going to smooth it out so that there isn't any, big wads of glue underneath there. Then I'm going to take some twine, and I'm going to make a little loop in the top of this cross and hang it over the words, the way, the truth, and the life, because Jesus came for us, and he tells us in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. And we're able to do that because of his sacrifice on the cross and the resurrection. Like he wouldn't have fulfilled prophecy if he hadn't have resurrected. Lots of gods have died, but only ours has resurrected. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this dark wax by DIY on here and buff it off and just give it a little bit of an aged look while we seal it. Now I'm just going to glue this twine to the top of this frame, and then I'm going to cut that excess off, and then I'm going to glue it a little bit in the front so that this cross, almost said heart, so this cross will dangle right down in the front, and I think this turned out really cute. You'll have to let me know what you think. Okay, the next DIY. I have these wooden blocks that I picked up at Dollar Tree when we were in Kentucky. I looked and looked for them, couldn't find them anywhere, and I found them there and I bought a load of them. So I'm just going to drill some holes in all of these all the way through with my drill. Then I'm going to get out my beads and I'm going to see which bead that I think will look good with this because we are going to make a garland. Yay! So I decided that large bead looks good there. Looks good in between there, but I didn't stop there. Now I'm counting them out because that's how I do things. I can't just count the blocks and see how many. So anyway, so I decided I wanted a smaller bead on each side of the large bead. So that's what we're going to do. Now I took some antique wax and some water and watered it down. Well, it was a little too watered down, so I added a little more antique wax. So you just get it to the consistency or the, however transparent you want it. Now I'm going to pour it in this bag with these beads. This is not a new trick. Tons of people have done this trick, but this just worked really good for me because I was doing, quite a bit of these, and I just wanted that stain to look. I don't have any luck when I'm doing this with paint. Now with something that I want looked stained, it works pretty good. Then I was trying to figure out how I wanted to get them out of this bag. I didn't want to pour them out because I didn't want to pour all that paint out. Excuse me. So I just drugged them out with my paintbrush. Then I started putting those blocks in there and digging them out and just taking some of the excess off and painting it onto the next one, sticking it in, and I just did that until I had all of these little blocks painted and all of the beads painted. And then I put them to the side and let them dry for a little while I did something else. I think I went ahead and did the little tags that we're going to put on the end of this. I think I went ahead and did those while this was drying, but I don't know if I showed it to you out of order or not. No, maybe, I don't know. I think I did. So then after they had dried for a little while, I came with this old t-shirt. This was just an old t-shirt that I cut up into 2 pieces, and I just used it and just wiping all that excess off. There's your little reminder to hit the thumbs up, and don't forget to like this video because you know how that helps us out as content creators. Okay, so I'm just trying to get all the excess off of there, wiping them kind of willy-nilly there, but I think they turned out really cute. Then I took some white chalk paint, which I have very little left in that little jar over there, and I just dry brushed a little bit around the edges because I didn't really want to lighten them up too much, but I didn't want them just to be really just flat either, we got to put a little something on them. Now I have these little wooden tags in my stash. I have a bunch of them actually. I bought a bunch of them in bulk. And I wanted to make a longer tag I thought I wanted to make it out of this scrapbook paper. So I'm tracing the width, and then I'm going to make it this long. I don't know why I didn't just put that other one down there. I don't know why I needed 2 of them because I'm extra like that. So then I'm going to make a long tag. Well, I decided instead to use some dark brown paper instead. So you're going to see that I don't end up actually using that blue paper. I tried to make one with it and I didn't like how it looked. So now I took some of that canvas drop cloth and I cut some little strips and frayed the edges, and I made some little decals, iron-on decals with my Cricut to say the different names of Jesus. And he is King, He's King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I just ironed all the little names onto these little pieces of this canvas drop cloth. He is Christ. And so I just, using my little mini iron, you can use a regular iron, you just make sure that you don't have any steam. Don't you love all that white paint on my fingers? Oh boy, I'm such a messy crafter. So I'm just making sure that I'm getting that on there good. Now here they all are: King, Redeemer, Messiah, Savior, Jesus, Lamb, Christ. He's eternal. And now you can see that I used this brown paper instead. And I'm going to take a little bit of that antique wax, very dry brush, and put it around the edges of this paper, because it just gives it a little bit more dimension, and it's almost like it outlines it. And then I'm going to glue down those little pieces of that drop cloth canvas onto these to make some little tags. And then I take my crocodile and make a hole in it. If you don't know what a crocodile is, it was created for scrapbooking. It's a scrapbooking tool, and it will punch holes in some thick materials. This is not really thick, but if you have even some thin wood or something metal, it will cut right through that. It's really intended to make little grommets or something like that. But anyway, here it is, and I'm just punching those holes through there, through those little tags. I think these little tags turned out super cute. Okay, now I made myself a long little needle. I put a lot of painter's tape, a long piece of painter's tape, so it'll go all the way through those big blocks. So I did a small bead, a big bead, a small bead, or a medium bead. They're not even small. And then I did a block. And then I did the beads on each side of the block. The holes in the block were not real smooth, so I did use that little dowel stick to smooth it out. And then I'm going to tie a double, triple knot on the end so the beads don't go anywhere. Cut off the excess. And I did add an extra bead on each end because I had an extra one made, so just use it. And then I'm going to make a tassel. And I had this kind of taupe and beigey, taupey twine along with some regular twine. And I'm just going to make a tassel for one end of our beaded garland. Excuse me. Allergies are really bad. The wind is blowing. Wind is blowing in Texas like crazy. I'm just going to tie that twine around the top of that to make the top of the tassel. You can just see what I'm doing. And if you need a slowed down version of how to make a tassel, there are plenty of videos out there. If you want to request me to make a slowed down version, I sure will, but they're really simple to make, and I think you can kind of see what I'm doing. But if you really need a slowed down version, just ask me and I'll do that. And then I'm going to just thread all these little tags on, and it's going to be similar to a tassel on the other end, but it's going to be all these little tags. So I'm just going to tie that up just like you see me doing right there. And I'm going to cut that excess twine off. I think I cut it off. And here, no I didn't, I left it on. And here's the final product. I love how this turned out. I'm keeping this for myself, and we'll have it displayed maybe year-round. Let me know what you think about this. The next DIY, I have a little crate, one of those little crates you get at Dollar Tree, and I'm showing you how this is one of those disposable cookie sheets or baking sheets from Dollar Tree. And you can just smooth out those little bumps with any kind of flat tool. Like I just used that little scraper tool that I got at Dollar Tree. You could use the side of your scissors. I've even used like a Sharpie laid down on its side. And I'm just going to take that little dowel stick and press in there so I can see where to cut it to make them all the same width. And then I'm just pressing it. You can just see what I'm doing. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just making some little, little metal pieces for the corners of our little wooden box. And this is so forgiving, this little aluminum, but it will cut you, so you have to be careful. Okay, I did not get on camera that I painted this with Dixie Belle Sawmill Gravy, and then I took the DIY dark wax and gave it a good coat on top. And then I'm going to use the dark wax on these 3 little crosses. Now these little crosses came from Hobby Lobby. I got them in a huge pack back in the kids section, the kids craft section. And I buy them regularly. I kind of forgot I had them along with that other cross earlier. I just had them in my stash and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Okay, here's another iron-on decal that I made on my Cricut. And I'm ironing it on a little piece of that drop cloth, canvas drop cloth. And we are using Mark 16, verse, what did it say? Verse 6. And it says, he isn't here, he is risen. That's when the ladies went to the tomb. Mary and the ladies went to the tomb to tend to Jesus' body. And he wasn't there. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. And so now I'm just going to glue these little metal pieces to the corners, and I'm just using the Aleene's tacky glue. You could use hot glue if you want. I just don't like the way the hot glue gets all bumpy under there because when it just dries thick, and also it's hot when you try to work with metal and hot glue. So I just clamped them down with my little Dollar Tree clamps, and it worked out just fine. Now I'm going to use that Aleene's tacky glue. I love this glue. It's thick and very sticky, and it dries pretty fast. Depending on what you're using it for. We're just going to put that little tag sign, whatever you want to call it, on the front. That's all dry. Now I'm going to take some elephant gray chalk paint by, is this Waverly? I think this is Waverly. And I'm going to dry brush it. I'm just going to stipple dab, dab, dab with a dry brush on there because I don't want it to be so shiny. I want it to look a little aged or a little bit like galvanized. So I do that with that, and then I'm going to go with that with a little bit lighter gray. I had already mixed this for a different DIY, you'll see later. And so I'm using a little bit of that, and then I go back and I mix a little bit of the white with a little bit of the elephant to make that look like that, however I wanted it. So, I mean, if you like it shiny gray or shiny silver, then you can do that. Okay, I didn't have any styrofoam to put in here, so I just cut a styrofoam ball in half and put it in there to put my florals in. Now these little florals came from Hobby Lobby a while back, and I had been using it in a little watering can in my Decor. And I took the watering can out of my Decor and took it out to the craft cottage and decided I was just going to use it in this DIY because it was going to be perfect. The size of the flowers and the colors and everything I loved, and you're going to love it too. I just know you are. Okay, so I just poked it all in there. And then I'm going to take these little dowel sticks. They're little skewers that you get at Dollar Tree. And I'm going to cut 2 of them the same length. And I'm using these little miter shears. You can cut them with scissors. They're really easy to cut. And then I'm going to cut one just a wee bit longer. So that, you have the cross in the middle is a little bit taller. Because Jesus was crucified on a hill. And we call it Mount Calvary or Golgotha, and he was in the middle, and so we always depict it as being, the taller cross because we like to set him up. So right here I'm just measuring to make sure that they're going to be about the same height. They don't have to be the exact same height. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to add a little extra glue for stability. Then I'm going to take that dark DIY wax and put a good healthy amount on these skewer sticks. They're bamboo, so they don't absorb that really good, but I'm going to put it on there so that they blend good. So, because otherwise that bamboo is, pretty stark sticking out of there. So I'm just going to stick those little crosses down in there, and this DIY is done, and I love how it's just simple, but it turned out really cute, and I love those little yellow flowers. Look how precious this is. He is risen indeed. Okay, The next DIY, I just took a little chunk of wood out of my stash. It was just a scrap piece of wood, and I sanded it down. And then I was giving it a coat of white chalk paint, and I just remembered that I wanted it to be salt wash. So I'm going to just stop where I was and mix up some salt wash. So I'm putting a little scoop of white chalk paint and then about that much right there salt wash. So I don't really mix it. It comes with mixing instructions when you purchase it, but I just mix it how I like it for whatever project I'm using. And if you get some, you can do the same thing. So I get my salt wash from Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Designs, and she sells it on her website, and I will leave a link to that in the description box below. Oops, did you see my paintbrush fall apart? I ended up hot gluing it back together. Oh man, it's because I soak them in water because I hate to wash them, and I sometimes leave them for days, and so it ruins them. But yeah, be sure to check out the salt wash on Sammy's website, because salt wash is the bomb. And you're going to see it. So I did one coat, and I just kind of stippled it on there, dabbed it on there, and now I'm going to use this Aged Gray by Rust-Oleum, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I've let this first coat dry almost completely. It doesn't have to be completely dry, but it's almost completely dry. And I'm working with this. I'm not doing this super thick. My paint is not super thick, and I'm not doing a super thick coat just because of the look. I want this to look kind of like a concrete block or a stone. I want it to look more like a stone block. So this is what I'm doing. So you can see that I'm just stippling it on. I'm just bouncing that chippy brush up and down, and it's going to make some little peaks. And that salt wash, someone asked me, and then I'm going to just put a coat of paint on the back. Oh no, now I'm using the lighter color. So I mixed some white and some gray together to make this lighter color. Now I waited until everything was completely dry to do this. And this coat of paint has no salt wash in it. This one is just paint. And I had someone ask me if salt wash was the same as using baking soda. And it is not. It is similar, but it is much better. It just gives you a much more texture. Okay, when that was completely dry, I went outside with my orbital hand sander, and I sanded down that block of wood. And you're going to see the beautiful look that I got from that as soon as I get through cutting out this little cross that I printed off on my printer. I just went to Google, and I said vintage Easter free printables, and this one came up, and I loved it. Now I had coated the top with Mod Podge. I'm not sure why, but I did, and so when it dried, I did the back as well. So now I just put some Mod Podge on the back of it, and I just printed it out on printer paper. Maybe I was trying to make it be a little bit thicker so it wouldn't bubble or something. I really don't know why I did the top of it with Mod Podge. Anyway, I did. But you can see how that block of wood looks like a concrete stone. I think it looks a little bit like a cinder block or something. I don't know. But I love how it turned out. And it's pretty smooth, but I didn't want to knock off all of the gray. You can see both colors of gray and the white. I didn't take it all the way down to the wood. I think it just turned out, well, I guess a little bit I did take it to the wood, but I just love how this turned out. It looks very Easter to me, like a stone. Okay, here's the last DIY of this video. And I had this little tray frame sign, whatever you want to call it. It came in a pack of 3 or 4 from Hobby Lobby, and I got it when it was on sale. So they were just a few dollars a piece when it came out. So I painted it with Prom Queen, the same color I used on the previous DIY, and I'm just going to white wax it. I'm just going to seal it with this white wax because I'm going to put some dark wax on it later, and I want to be able to control the dark wax better. So when you put the white wax or the clear wax on first, then the dark wax doesn't soak in as much because it's already previously been waxed. Now, these DIY waxes are made with all natural ingredients, so it's important not to dip your brush or your rag back into that jar. Okay, I did give the inside of this little frame plaque a coat of Mod Podge and let it dry completely. And then I didn't get that on camera, sorry guys. And then I took my little iron and did the iron-on method with the Mod Podge and this little free printable I got with Christ the Lord is Risen Today. That was one of my favorite songs as a little girl for Easter, our hymns, and so that's the one I chose to put in this little frame. And the last verse there was John 11:25 through 26. And Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying, meaning we will have eternal life if we believe in Jesus and believe that he died on the cross and rose again for us, to forgive us of our sins. So I'm just taking some of that dark wax, and you can see that I'm just going to kind of dirty it up a little bit. And then I will always take my little piece of t-shirt. You can see it over there, that dirty little piece of white t-shirt, and always buff it and smooth everything out with that. I did not show you that. And then I found this greenery in my stash. Just, always save all those little bits and pieces, because look, I just needed 2 little bits. That's all this needed to look so darling cute. I hope that you liked all of these scripture, biblical inspired Easter DIYs.
If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you from the bottom of my heart. But most of all, remember to be still and know that He is God.